Warning, you're about to watch the most pretentious video about Blinx the Timesweeper you'll ever see in your entire life. Viewer discretion is advised. My first non-handheld video game console was the original Xbox. Me, my sister, and my parents all saved money together to buy it. But to this day, I'm not sure why we decided on this console specifically. Maybe because it was the newest? Or maybe we just really liked the commercial. What? While it was originally meant for the entire family to play on, as the years went on, a silent agreement was made that the console was mine, since I was the only one who still used it. And yeah, my parents did bring it home the day after a part of my school burned down, but I don't see what that has to do with anything. Since I only owned an Xbox, a Game Boy Color, and later a Game Boy Advance SP, I missed out on a lot of now classic games that came out during the early 2000s. What I got instead were games that, some more obvious than others, tried to be the new and hot Xbox versions of games from competing systems. Instead of Wipeout, us Xbox players got Quantum Redshift, and instead of something like The Legend of Zelda, we got Azuric Rise of Parathia, which, funny enough, is a mix of Avatar The Last Airbender and James Cameron's Avatar before either of those properties existed. And of course, instead of the legendary Nintendo icon Super Mario, we got Blinx the Timesweeper. What most of the games in the early Xbox library have in common is that these days, whatever impact they once might have had is non-existent, to the point that one could easily be fooled into believing that these games never existed at all. Like, does anyone remember Nightcaster Defeat the Dark? Or Nightcaster 2 Equinox? Hell, even I didn't know that game existed until a couple of years ago. Blinx is sadly no exception. Today, he's perhaps mostly known as the face of the Twitter account Poorly Aged Things. And while a lot of people might get the joke, some might not even realize that the character in this profile picture used to be the protagonist of a 20-year-old video game. So what is the joke then? Well, around the time of the game's release, the cover of the official Xbox magazine claimed that Blinx would go to war against the major video game mascots. Whether it was Microsoft's unified vision to have Blinx be the global face of Xbox or not didn't actually matter. People saw a cartoon-looking video game character being marketed for a new video game console and basically did the job for them. But in the end, Blinx lost that supposed war. Partially because his game didn't sell that well, and partially because Microsoft found a more successful and mature mascot in the Doom Guy. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I refuse to let Blinx's legacy be nothing more than the face of things that have aged poorly. Blinx the Timesweeper is not some underappreciated gem of a game, but it is one of the most significant games of my entire life. A game that wasn't just a part of my childhood, but in some very specific ways, a reflection of it. So here is another video on this YouTube channel that is supposed to be about horror stuff that isn't about horror at all, brought to you by the very generous people who spent their actual hard-earned money to make this happen. I hope you'll like it! Let's start with who Blinx is. He is a cat, but not just any cat. This one can manipulate time by using his trusty vacuum cleaner. You get it? Because cats are usually scared of vacuums? It's an amazing joke! The character was designed by none other than Naoto Oshima, who had previously made another console mascot in the form of Sonic the Hedgehog. And there's definitely a hint of that modern Sonic attitude in Blinx's design. The smug face he pulls on the cover, the classic anime goggles, big eye-catching shoes. Personality-wise, he actually has more in common with Super Mario though. When he stops posing for the camera and starts moving around the game environments, he is cute. rather than cool. He's happy all the time. He takes every chance he can get to express that. And one of the major goals that drives him is to save a beautiful princess, just like Mario. Blinx wasn't just a competitor to Sonic and Mario. He was an almost Frankensteinian blend of the two, right down to him wearing both of their primary colors, red and blue. What differentiates Blinx from Sonic and Mario is that when we meet him for the first time in Blinx the Time Sweeper, he's no world-saving hero. He is an average time factory worker. That he is the one that decides to single-handedly save the world is almost accidental. He sees that the evil Tom Tom gang has kidnapped a girl that he immediately falls for and decides to take action. The game then is not about Blinx being a hero, but becoming one. When Blinx the Time Sweeper was finished and the studio Artoon started working on Blinx 2, they decided that Blinx's arc was over and done with. The focus of Blinx 2 would instead be to let you, the player, make your very own Time Sweeper and repeat the becoming a hero arc all over again. Oh yeah, did you know that there even was a Blinx 2? I can't say I blame you if you didn't. Microsoft cared enough about Blinx the Time Sweeper to make it playable even on a brand new Xbox Series X, but even they don't seem to remember Blinx 2. Forcing the player to make their own playable character was misguided. Like, imagine that the direct sequel to either Super Mario Bros. Or Sonic the Hedgehog was still named after the protagonist from the previous game, but barely featured him at all. In fact, he isn't even playable. Instead, they decided to make Blinx a cool side character with a bloody scar on his cheek. The lighthearted and goofy voice performance was also replaced by none other than the voice of Quentin Flynn, as in Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2, which sure makes the disappointment of not being able to play as the much more likable main character from the previous game incredibly ironic, considering that Metal Gear Solid 2 got some serious backlash because it forced you to play as Raiden instead of the previous protagonist Solid Snake. Now let me tell you who I was back in 2002, when the first Blinx game was released. I was 8 years old, and by saying that I've probably made everyone who's older than me feel like a pensioner. You're welcome, by the way! My time in elementary school was far from easy. I had friends, but I was also a prime target for anyone who wished to harm someone for their own kicks. I was a geeky, eyeglass-wearing, nose-picking extrovert who had recently been diagnosed with ADHD. Kids are kind of weird in general, but I was weird. I was almost always loud when I spoke, and I expected all of my friends to simply follow my lead and understand why I acted the way I did, without being able to properly express why that was. As I grew older, I started to really struggle with my own sense of identity, which is par for the course when you're going through puberty, but I don't think that my strange brain made things any easier. Who was I gonna be? Was I gonna be cool or funny, or was I even able to be any of those things? It was a long phase of trial and error that lasted throughout the rest of my childhood, and even a bit longer than that. I was also fixated on time. Still am, to a large degree. I was always waiting for something. Waiting for the time when I could get back home and play video games. Waiting for the time I could leave my dreaded elementary school to where the bullies couldn't follow me. Waiting for someone to fall in love with me as much as I would fall for them. Wanting to go back to a memory I cherished. Wanting to leave an awful memory behind. Wanting to stop the Earth's rotation for just a short moment and just breathe. When I reflect on that time, especially those elementary school days, I can't help but think of Blinx. He was obviously never intended to be a failed video game mascot, but in his failure, I eventually found something very comforting for me personally. Because in a way, I kinda was like Blinx. And I know that sounds really silly, but stick with me here. Like me, Blinx was expected to be something he ultimately couldn't be. No matter how much he tried to adapt to what people might have wanted out of him, it simply wasn't enough. He tried to be cute and funny. He tried to be cool and serious. But was he ever really himself? Was there actually a fully realized version of the character just waiting to reveal itself? We will never know, because Blinx's journey ended after the second game. Well, actually, it kind of ended after the first. My journey, however, didn't. And while I still carry around insecurities and some amount of anguish from my childhood, I eventually came to realize who I was. This is me. When I realized that my personality and self-expression didn't need to abide by any social expectations, I finally figured out who I am. Who I had always been. I'm a non-binary polyamorous dork who loves video games, wearing makeup, and fancy clothes. When I play Blinx the Timesweeper today, it's not just another game that reminds me of my childhood. It's like I'm sitting face to face with that insecure kid that I used to be. And I can stretch out my hand and say that things are gonna be alright. You're gonna be fucking fabulous one day. The word nostalgia has kind of gotten a bad connotation in the video game community. No matter if it's an old game that you grew up with, or a new game that's trying to replicate the experience you had with a game you grew up with, it's an easy target for someone to point out as only being good because it's nostalgic. Even if that is true, I think that's giving nostalgia-inducing games way less credit than they deserve. If someone suddenly released a new game that tried to be almost exactly like Blinx the Timesweeper, barely improving on anything, I think I would hate that. Same goes for several of the Xbox exclusive games that I grew up with. Blinx the Timesweeper is not a top-notch game. The bad stuff isn't even so bad that it's good. That stuff is just plain bad and still feels bad to this day. But I still love this game, and the sequel. And yes, that is 100% because of the personal nostalgic experience they give me. Does that make my enjoyment of them less valid? Of course not. In her video essay, A Virtual Place to Call Home, EuroThug4000 points out that when we leave our hometown, in the real world, and return sometime later, things will most likely have changed. Roads and buildings might have been built or torn down, and the people you grew up with might be completely different or might have moved away entirely. But generally, video game worlds are static, especially when it comes to games that aren't dependent on online connectivity or patches. They will remain as they were the very first time you played them, and they will still remain that way even 50 years from now. Nostalgic video games aren't good simply because they remind us of a time and a place that is personally meaningful. They are good because they're perhaps the closest thing we have to actual fucking time machines. Unlike photographs or old family videos, they are almost perfectly preserved and explorable worlds. Even if exploring and reflecting on your past has nothing to do with the actual goal of the game, I'd say that a video game that's able to move you back in time, have you come to terms with your past and have a meaningful time thinking about who you were then compared to who you are now, is a pretty damn special game. According to me, the value of a video game isn't based on its longevity in the collective consciousness, but the very personal effect it has on even a single player. That lineup of early Xbox exclusives might not be remembered by many, but to some, they might have given memories to last a lifetime. And to me, Blinx the Timesweeper is such a perfect representation of that. There's something very ironic about a video game with a major focus on time itself being lost to it. But while time may have forgotten about Blinx, I won't. Because to me, Blinx is an important reminder of what could have been. Had I kept trying to conform and please everyone around me by being someone that I wasn't, maybe I wouldn't literally disappear like Blinx did. But I certainly wouldn't be here, right now, in this very moment. And that would be a damn shame. Because I can finally say that I am exactly where I want to be. Oh, and I totally think that Blinx should be repurposed as a non-binary icon. Bye! Thank you so much for watching. Since this video is the result of reaching my first Patreon goal, it would literally not exist if it weren't for the names that you see on screen. And I want to give a special thanks to Nichtschwert, Sindri Orben, Tobias Mattsson, Håvard Krugerud, Professor Flowers, Vinders, Philip Kirschner, Oddshrew, Mackenzie Pollock, Eli Berg-Moss, Buttercactus, Bluequitch, and Sierra Mayer. If you want to see your name on this list, all you need to do is donate $1 or more a month on Patreon. You also get access to the Discord server, and you get to see all future videos earlier than everyone else. I also want to thank Nichtschwert and Jack Lockjaw for proofreading, Kiki from Transparency for making the thumbnail, and Emma Hagdahl for teaching this rookie how to apply makeup properly. And while I don't exactly recommend that you go out of your way to get your own copy of either Blinx game, I highly recommend that you at least check out the soundtrack for the first one. It's ridiculously good. Until next time, remind the people close to you that you love them. They'll always deserve to hear that more often.